PI Show. My name's Harry Nowicki. I'm a personal injury lawyer. I'm here together with a colleague, Tony Carbone.
Good evening, Harry. Good evening, viewers.
We've both been involved in personal injuries for many years, Tony.
Yeah, we're clocking up 50 between us all, sorry.
Tony, the first part of the show usually has some interesting news of injuries that have occurred around Australia.
Yeah.
And being a Melbourne person, we've got some footy news.
Yeah, we've got the story of Plugger Lockett, Harry, the famous AFL goal kicker.
Does he hold the record?
1,360 goals. He's in front of Dunstall and one other player. I can't remember who the other player is, but he had an accident. He got involved in motocross at the end of his career, apart from anything else, and it was a passion of his. And he was involved in an accident recently, back in June, where he's come off this bike and he's badly injured his arm. Now, his arm's got very little or no use now, and he's had 3 operations. And, you know, really, everyone's concerned about him, and, you know, if he had to work, he'd be in all sorts of strife. What it highlights, Harry, is, and we've raised it a few times, is the risk of motorcycles and similar sort of...
bicycles as well. But motorcycles as well.
It's probably, it just highlights the risks of being on the road or motocross or anything like that with cycles. And
damage that occurs.
And damages that occur, yeah.
I think, 3 operations and loss of use of a left arm.
Yep.
Take people as you find them. Tony's a big lad. I mean, you reckon he's about 130 kilos?
At least.
6'4"?
6'4", and when he hits the ground, it hit it pretty hard.
The damage would be significant.
Yep.
But, if you have an injury on a motorcycle, you just really should consult a lawyer. TAC are usually involved in some shape or form.
But this being motocross, you'd think there's an exclusion?
There's probably an exclusion by way of legislation, depending on the facts.
So what's his fallback position? Private insurance?
There'd be private insurance.
Okay. But anyone else that's not involved in motocross or racing, anything to do with racing is excluded under legislation, isn't that right, Harry?
Mostly.
More or less.
Mostly.
Unless someone's drag racing and someone gets injured, an innocent bystander or spectator gets injured, no circumstance you consider it negligent driver.
Yep.
And it also extends beyond the motorcycles and just push bikes.
Yep, sure does.
So if you ever come off a bike of whatever description, consult a lawyer.
Yep, and see what rights you've got. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about some stories that the Herald Sun's run recently about the Casey Hospital. What happened was they ran one story about a 16-year-old girl who went to hospital and was misdiagnosed, and then that triggered a lot of calls to the Herald Sun. So they ran a series of stories about people who had been to Casey Hospital. We don't want to single out Casey, but it just happens to be in the news and highlights some...
They've been under the pump, Harry.
Well, highlights some legal issues about how medical negligence cases may proceed. And the first case is the sad case of Kate Newton, who was a 16-year-old girl who presented to the Casey Hospital with some symptoms of headaches and I think vomiting.
Severe headaches and severe vomiting for an extended period of time, over a week.
And they diagnosed a possible pregnancy.
That's right, and she had a urine infection as well.
And she had a urine infection, and then they sent her home.
That's right.
Then her symptoms continued.
Yes.
And what happened then, Tony?
Well, see, what happened was this. When she went to the hospital, she had severe migraines, she couldn't stand light or noise, and she had vomiting for a week. She went back again, and she says that the headaches were getting worse, they're unbearable, they were agonising. And at that time, she actually asked for a brain scan, and she was denied that.
They sent her away. Well, yes. According to her version, she was sent away. Yep.
And it's pretty compelling. And then she goes back again a short time thereafter, and she's got a urinary infection that was diagnosed. She was put on intravenous fluids and sent home with antibiotics. And she insisted on a brain scan again. That's her evidence. She went back again 2 days later, so this is the third time. Headaches worsening. They diagnosed her with vertigo and no brain scan.
And sent her home again?
Again. Then on the 9th of June, probably, I don't know, maybe 10 days later, give or take. Unable to get out of bed, balance or tolerate light. Her mother called an ambulance, taken to Royal Children's Hospital by ambulance. The sister was in the back of the ambulance. Her sister actually said that she saw her die in the ambulance. So she had a heart attack in the ambulance. When she got to the hospital, a neurosurgeon had to operate, didn't have a lot of time to operate, to release fluid in the brain to save her life. So it sounds to me she had some sort of an aneurysm of some description.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. But what, reading the sort of newspaper accounts is that she made a reasonable recovery from all of that. She went through horrific trauma, and it was a near-death experience as described, but she made a reasonable recovery, Tony.
I'm not sure. She's still got short-term memory loss and dizzy spells. I don't know. I mean, she would have a reasonably severe psychiatric reaction, you'd think, that would qualify.
But the first thing is that if she wanted to sue the hospital, if she came to you for advice, Tony, what would your advice be?
Well, look, I think it's critical to get the facts right. So I'd want every little piece of information I could get. I'd get the notes from the hospital.
Records of the hospital.
And records. I'd sit her down and take a very, very clear instruction on what actually happened. I'd get it from her, her mother, her sister, and anyone else that was relevant. And I would have thought that on these facts you've got some sort of a case. Notwithstanding what Section 59 of the Wrongs Act says, I think this is a case where it's almost blatant.
Well,
It's almost blatant.
Partly depends who she saw at the hospital and how she described the symptoms and what advice.
Yeah, but you still got to act
She gave.
prudently, and if the person that saw her wasn't sure, they should have got someone with more experience, and other things should have been done. Look, they should have admitted it, perhaps. I would have thought. Keep her there for 24 hours or something. The brain scan, the brain scan would have been the answer, I would have thought.
But the brain scan mightn't have demonstrated anything early on, and then later on it simply...
Well, she did have a week of symptoms, Harry. It wasn't just a day or two. It was a week of vomiting and severe headaches and migraines.
But again, it raises an issue. What would the brain scan have shown early on? Even if they'd done a brain scan, what would it have shown? And secondly, would the events have been any different? Again, it's some interesting issues.
On these facts, as little as we know, I would have thought that something else could have been done. A scan should have been done.
Well, I agree with that.
We've got to go to a sponsors break, Harry. So, look, I just want the viewers to keep watching. So please don't go away. We'll be back very shortly. Stay tuned. Thank you.